Today, I'm going to talk a bit on ensuring accessibility compliance in the Power Pages, so best practices and the standards. So let's begin into it. And I would like to briefly introduce myself here, and then I will go a bit deep into the session. So my name is Ambesh Singh, Microsoft MVP in the Power Pages in the Copilot Studio, and currently I'm working with the Visionet Deutschland as a Dynamic 365 and the Power Platform Architect. Prior to that, I worked with the Avnat, KPMG Deutschland, and the PSN View, EA Sports, and mostly in my career, I've worked with the Microsoft in the different product groups, global consultings, and deliveries. I'm also the mentor and the ambassador of the Power community, and love to speak and share my learning on the Azure Power Platform, Copilot, Dynamic 365 topics over the global events and the conferences. Let's talk about how to ensure the accessibility in the Power Pages. So, Microsoft is committed to make the products and the services accessible for everyone. But before we go deep into that, let's talk about what accessibility is and why it is important in the day to day life, and especially for the Power Pages as an external facing website. Because always remember, Power Pages is the only component in the whole Power Platform which is exposed to the unlicensed user at some point of time. Your data is exposed outside of that one, like without any specific licensing requirement for the end users, basically. Okay, so accessibility basically referred to the design and the creation of the environment, products, and the services that can be used by all the people, including those who have the disabilities. This include also the physical spaces, digital content, and the various form of the communication. Why is accessibility important? So the first thing is inclusivity. Ensure that everyone, regardless of their abilities and the access and the benefit from the same resources and the opportunities. The second and very important thing is the legal compliance. So many countries have their laws and the regulation that required accessibility, such as American with the Disability Act, ADA in the United States, or the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG internationally. It also improved the user experience. So accessibility design to often lead to a better overall user experience for everyone, not just to those with the disabilities. Now, we are the human being. We are living in this society, so we do have the social responsibilities here. So we also promote the equality and help to remove the barriers that prevent the people for participating fully in the societies. Also, the last and but not the least, uh, any product work basically in more or less for the profitability. So market reach is an important aspect here, and by making the by making the product and the service accessible, business can reach a wider audience that include the millions of the people with a disability worldwide. Now we go for the accessibility standards. So Power Pages follow some of the global accessibility standards, which include the WCAG 2.1. And when we talk about the web content accessibility guidelines, which is the WCAG, now it starts with the 2.1 that cover a worldwide range of the recommendation to create an accessible web content. There are some of the guidelines that make your content accessible to the wide range of the users that include the accommodation for the people with the visual impairments, hearing loss, limited mobility, inability to speak, as well as maybe if you can talk about the blindness and the low visions. Deafness and hearing loss, limited movement, photosensitivity. Sometimes you have cognitive or the developmental disabilities. And by following these guidelines that also address the accessibility of the web content on the desktop, laptop, tablets, on any of the mobile or the handy devices. The second important I would say the rules and the laws here are from the US. So US Section 508 or 508. That is basically the US General Service Administrator GC office's government wide policy is tasked under the section 508. So what happened in that case? This is basically a rehabilitation act to provide the technical assistance to help the federal agencies basically to compile with the requirements and ensure that they covered the information and the communication technology is accessible to the user, like accessible and usable basically by every individuals with the disabilities. Next, we live in Europe. So in Europe also we have a EN 301 or 549. This is basically from the European Telecommunication Standard Institute, ETSI. that provide an open, inclusiveness, and collaborative environment. And these environment basically support the timely development, satisfactions, and testing the global applicable standard of the ICT-enabled systems and applications or the services. To create an accessible website, you have to follow the WAI, ARIA authoring practices. Right now, I think it's a 1.1. It's keep updating based on the new inclusions there, new standards, or yeah, the new recommendations. These authoring practices URL displays here on the slide. So I would also put this in the link. We could follow that one also. Also, please note the important aspect that makers or the developers in the Power Platform, or as a maker or a developer, you are also responsible to meeting the accessibility standard when you customize your Power Pages site. Because what we got it from the Microsoft, generally we don't deploy and yeah, give it to the customers or the end users. We always make amendments and the changes there. The moment you make any changes, then you are also equally liable to continuing those standards what Microsoft offered to the end users. Now let's quickly move to the next one. And after having the brief around the accessibility in the Power Pages, now let's talk about some of the quick tips of accessible content in the Power Pages now. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we as a developer or the maker are responsible for the accessibility or to follow the accessibility standards. And whenever we customize the Power Pages, there are some of the guidelines, some of the quick tips for the accessible content in the Power Pages. The first one is you need to make sure a non-sighted or the visually impaired person can do everything what a sighted user can do. So there should be from the functionality or the consumption of the functionality, there shouldn't be any kind of the difference. The way could be differ, but the end results should have been the same. Also, the test, like whenever you build it as a maker, or if you are in the testing team or as a business users or the product owners, you have to test your Power Pages site by zooming in around 400%. And you need to make sure that all of the text are readable and the pages or the controls functions as expected. Color contrast matter. We know there are the different ways to go with the color contrast on, like for the Mac users different, for the Windows user they're the different way, but at the end of the day you use a color contrast tool also to help to see the contrast ratio. Color should not be also, should not be the only visual way to convey or any action to the, or the information to the end users. If you are changing the color to highlight the text, ensure the colors or the descriptive information is also available in the text. You can also use the alt attribute for every image tag. So if you use an empty L attribute to hide the images from the screen readers, it's ideally you can use the CSS to define decorative images hidden from the screen readers. Also, you can use the Microsoft Accessibility Insight tool to perform like basically two types of the scan. The first called the fast pass, and the second one is the assessment. In the fast pass, basically automatically it check for the compliance and the dozens of the accessibility requirement and provide you the results. The assessment also more and less the same. It also measures the compliance from the WCAG 2.1 with the level AA success criteria. Then you have to follow, as I mentioned in the last one, WAI, ARIA authoring practices while creating the pages layout or adding any widgets, making any CSS, JavaScript changes into your website. Test your site using the same accessibility tool, what your users are using it basically. So an example, if you are using use a screen reader, if you are such as a window narrator, if you are on the Windows machine, you can use the immersive reader in the Microsoft Edge browser to make sure that your Power Pages site is rendered and readable, and making it adjustment to the website as needed. This is all, but not, you know, um, the ends. It's not here. So we know there are more content coming in the next minutes. Also, again, thank you all to be here in the session and bear with me for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And you can subscribe the channel because we also produce a lot of the Power Pages quick tips series and the other Power Platform technology tips on this.